Well, welcome back, everybody. Everybody who found us again, that is. I think we've got the situation resolved on YouTube. I don't know if Facebook and Twitter are working properly, but I think the simulcast is back. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back here in just a moment and just finish out the show without interruption. And hopefully we won't have a problem again, but I'll explain what happened in a moment. All right, welcome back, everyone. I do apologize. I think, well, it's probably not as nefarious as it seemed.
No, it's nefarious.
I think we had a bandwidth overload, and it's even right now it's looking a little bit fuzzy in terms of the stream. But I had to create a completely new key, which when you're on the air is not exactly easy to do for a simulcast. So I had to go back and reboot everything. And fortunately, and I want this to be something that everyone knows, the live feed going out to Spreaker, which is the audio only feed that is made for the podcast. Remember, this show is a podcast. Most of you know it now as a YouTube show with the video and everything. But it's always been a podcast. It will always be a podcast. We just added a video feature for people to have a little more of an interactive experience, but that takes a lot more bandwidth to do. And as you know, the internet out here in the middle of nothing is sketchy, and it can sometimes have problems. We think that's what happened here. But the Spreaker feed, which is audio only, almost always stays consistent and never has a problem. So if you missed anything because you were watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else the simulcast goes out, Twitch or whatever, you can go back and listen to the on-demand replay on Spreaker, and you can catch that part. But we're back here on all of the platforms right now. We're not going to have any more interruption. I'm not going to take any further breaks. We're just going to go all the way through to the end of the show. I do apologize for that. Sometimes happens. Now, if we can get more support for this show and, we can build some sponsorship perhaps, then we can upgrade the internet to a fiber optic platform, which would eliminate this problem. This is not fiber optic. This is the slowest high-speed internet you can possibly get. And it's all that's available that goes to this property outside of spending, I think it was $20,000 that Comcast wants to put a line in directly to get some gigabyte speeds. We can also do fiber optics, but that's like $1,000. Well, yeah, it's $1,000 a month, right? It was $1,000 a month, which is way too much for a show like this. Now with sponsorship, we could do it, but we need more support. So if you want to have more stability, support the show. Okay. All right. So I was talking about Inferno, and that would be right at the time when we got cut off and there was all this problems. We were talking about Inferno, and if we're talking about there being a nefarious thing, as Tom was referring to, how is this affecting these souls? And then you, Michael, I think mentioned that there was that you believe it was a nefarious operation, and that there's sort of a group of people that believe that the world should be or requires a lower population than what there is. Inferno deals with that very subject in the sense that the character
book was so much better.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I didn't read the book, but the book deals with the subject matter that in order to save the human race, the population has to be reduced by a very large number.
Yeah, just go off yourself.
What's that?
Go off yourself, will you?
Well, I'm getting to a point here.
Line up here for those willing
go off yourself.
Go bugger off, because we really have to. Not me, or any of these people. We're in charge, but you lot,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go take care. Yeah.
Toddle off.
So let's assume for a moment that this whole thing is related to that on some more realistic level. Could it be? I'm not saying it is. Okay, I'm not even saying I agree with this. I don't. But could it be that the people, if there is a group in charge that has orchestrated this thing to lower the population? I mean, you know about the Georgia Guidestones, and it's interesting that they got blown up you know, just recently too. You know about those things, do you? Yeah. You know, yeah, and they vary the message on the Georgia Guidestones for those who are not familiar with them. We're going to do a show on them actually before they were destroyed. The whole message on there was basically to lower the population to under 500 million, something like that. Yeah, 500 million. Okay, so could it be that this group of elitists or whatever they are truly believes that they're doing some good, or do you think they know they're being nefarious? What do you think?
I think they know they're being nefarious.
There may be underlings below them that think that
it's the right thing to do.
That have been brainwashed.
The brainwashed lot probably believe in all that tripe, but the ones at the top,
it's all a massive death cult. It's all a massive death cult.
That's what it is. It's always been that way. I mean, look at this sacrificing cult has existed for thousands and thousands of years, and the Aztecs sacrificed, all of them. They've all been at it.
Yeah,
it's actually the unique thing about Christianity is that it made a bloodless sacrifice.
Yeah,
that's why it's. Yeah, that's why it's better for everyone.
Because I pass out at the sight of blood, so it suits me fine.
But you don't pass out at the sight of wine, do you, Michael? Right?
It probably has the opposite effect.
Jesus knew what he was doing.
Perks him up.
He knew what he was doing.
The passing out comes much later.
That guy there, I tell you, turning water into wine. What a guy!
The passing out comes out much later. It's true, though. Okay, so I know that we lost a lot of time, and I appreciate Tom's question. I really don't think there was anything nefarious. I really think it was my internet being stupid. But let's get to the question. So what do we have? And let's try to get through as many as we can. And Michael and Marty, most of them I'm sure for you. So let's see what we can do.
Brandon had a question, and I think you kind of actually touched on this without me even knowing it, about suicides or people with terminal illnesses and how that works with your work. Are they able to speak to you? I think is what he's asking.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. You don't know what you don't know. I mean, the ones that are stuck or whatever probably are not going to talk to me. Mm-hmm. All the ones that do talk to me have moved on and they're on the other side. Whether they how they feel over there about it is another matter. I mean, they obviously feel relieved that they left Earth, but by the same token, they haven't really resolved anything. It solved nothing. The problem remained.
Right.
I did self-hypnosis, and I went back to my last lifetime where I actually took my own life. And it was, obviously I didn't get rid of myself. And I'm still here, and I still had problems, the same problems that I went through in my last lifetime. I had to go through this lifetime. So it sort of sets you back. Your progress is just, you have to redo that class, in high school because you didn't pass the test. So it's never a good idea.
Right.
Well, you can see how some people don't want to die a terrible death. I think it's all more to do with motive.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Than anything, you know what I mean?
Like if you jump on a grenade to save a buddy.
Yeah.
That's completely different.
That's so different.
That's not suicide.
People that have done that. Yeah,
right. Sacrifice.
People have done that. That's self-sacrifice. That's a completely different thing. Yeah. So I think that they're dealing with something that they can't resolve, and they
trying to take the easy way out.
they're just, it's a cop out in a way.
A lot of times diseases, it does look bad and it is painful, but it's like you're burning off karma is what you're doing, because you weren't able to do it spiritually or mentally or anything else. So you're having to deal with it physically.
The soul looks at it like a transformer. So it tries to transmute is the best word, to transmute negative energy on the highest level, right?
Right.
If you can't do it on the spiritual level, then it takes it down to the mental level. And if you can't do it there, it drops it down another level. And basically, if it can't transmute energy that needs to be transmuted from the past, it comes back to you, and the soul says, well, I'm just going to have to burn the body up, because the soul won't do it any other way. So the overself says, well, you're just going to have to burn it up in the body, and the body gets cancer or whatever and dies. It has no option. So you're trying to transmute energy. And if you take your own life, maybe you've shortened it. This is such a deep question, because it goes to the very depth of the soul, and it's such an individual thing. So
that's why the Christian would say, because I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in saying take your own life, because the Christian would say it's not your life to take,
right?
That it belongs to God. And so, and I think views of salvation come into this. Like on the one hand, you've got a sort of overly Protestant view of salvation, which says, I'm saved on the day I say Jesus is Lord. That's one approach. Another approach, which I think is equally wrong, maybe not equally, but is also wrong, is a sort of more Catholic, I suppose, approach, which says, I'll be saved in heaven, or I'll be saved in the next life. Or some people think that. That's not official Catholic teaching. but I would say that the correct way to conceptualize it is to say I'm being saved, and that theos is that salvation is a process that in a sense never ends.
Right.
And so if people think they can end it or circumvent it by killing themselves, and somehow if I kill myself, then actually God will fix me in the next life. No.
You still have to deal with it on the
You still have to shed it away.
Yeah, exactly. You have to do the work. You
have to cooperate with it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
doesn't
so
disappear.
It's like the eunuchs in China. I was taught that what they actually did was hold up their evolution that way, because what they did was take away something that they had to physically overcome. If you've had your what's-its chopped off, you haven't got to deal with it, do you? Hey, well, you don't have to deal with it, do you? It's not a problem. But when you have it, it's a problem sometimes, and you have to resolve it.
Yeah.
It's actually why eunuchs were not allowed to be priests.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
Because priests have to overcome the passions. They can't.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Can't bypass it.
Exactly. Well, this is kind of the same thing, isn't it? If you take your own life, you're copping out in a way. You're trying to bypass something.
Cheating.
You're cheating.
Yeah.
In a way. I'm not saying all cases, because
and it doesn't work.
It's different. There are some times when, I don't know, it's such a individual thing.
It is.
I don't think as many people are stuck as people think. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I agree.
They get a lot of help on the other side.
Yeah. There's a lot of, when you die, you get a lot of help, and people come and try and assist you after death. And it's very rare that people are not. So that's in my experience. All the people that transition, they often come through to me and they say, oh, I was met by my dad, and this person met me, and there were 7 people in the room waiting to meet me. And they tell me all the people and who they were. And they say, oh my God, my mum said that. She said, so I know they're met. I know people are met, and I know that they transition with the assistance of others. And
Oh yeah, well, a lot of us have experienced when someone's on their deathbed and they see and talk to people that we can't
Yeah,
see, but
exactly.
they're having
It's
full-on
common.
conversations.
yeah, it's a common experience. Yeah.
Right.
All right, let's get to the next question.
You want to shoot one there, Father Chris?
Yeah, I've got a few. So, going right back, Lisa, what do you see? What do you see as my most important purpose that will have such a grace on the collective? So I think this is about what we do as ourselves that will have the greatest or best effect on us as humans and on humanity. I think that was the question.
Whew.
Well, again, that's very individual, you know.
Well, I think that to be as selfless as you can be, and find that obviously each person is going to find something that suits them within their capacity. So you can't overdo your capacity. You can't.
I guess to bring it to your work, Michael and Marty, it might be about, you know, have any of these souls sort of given you an indication as to
any advice
you mean
what's been the best effect? Yeah.
To them after they died, you mean? Is that what she means? Oh, I see.
Well, that's me. That's me developing it. But
I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, very often there were atheists on Earth. They've died. They've come through. They've said, "Well, clearly I'm not an atheist anymore." Or, you know, obviously I believe in this now. You know, because they're talking to me, to their relative. Oh yeah, he didn't believe in this. You know. And then there are people that go on to do other things over there, because I think people have this strange idea that you do nothing when you die. You just float around.
That's why I always laugh at when people say "rest in peace."
Rest in peace.
There's no rest.
And you're like, actually.
Right.
Yeah, so you know, you do things over there to assist. Like one guy, he assisted people after an earthquake to transition, and he was a social worker in life. Another girl got involved with animals when she died, and her mother told me she wanted to be a vet when she was before she died. So people go over and they do things that assist or help others. That's the general rule. That's generally what happens. And maybe they fulfill something that, like over there, that they wanted to do on Earth. Maybe they built a particular house over there that they always wanted to build, and it's about fulfillment of a desire, because you have to get desires out of the way somehow.
Yeah, you got to shed that.
Somehow work. Yeah, you have to figure them out, you know. And so they do that over there as well. But usually it's toward an end of helping others, you know, because maybe they're a builder. Well, you know, buildings over there last a long time, some of them, because they're built by great minds. People with not such a great mental capacity, they build a house, it don't last very long. It's a bit like here in a way. We built, you know.
It's kind of been the theme tonight, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been talking about that in different ways, sometimes quite literally and other times figuratively, but we keep coming back to it.
Buildings, yeah.
All right, what's our next one?
I don't remember who asked it because we lost that last chat, but someone wanted you all to speak on karmic law.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, karma is very simply, it says in the Bible, as you sow, so shall you reap. Karma is very simply the law of the universe. It's the basic law of the universe. Obviously, there are sub-laws and all kind of, you know, offshoots of that law, but basically it's
just like energy.
To every action, there's a perfectly equal and opposite reaction. Mm-hmm. And that's the law of karma. And, you know, karmic things can take thousands of years to come back to a person. Should we say, you put a thought out, well, it may spin around for a while before it comes back to you.
Yeah.
And people are walking along and something happens to them. They go, "What on earth was that about?" And you think, you forgot what happened, didn't you? 4,000 years ago, you threw this thing off a cliff and it hit someone on the head, and you forgot about that, didn't you? It's like that's what karma is. Karma is simply the law of the universe working. That's all. It's not a person. It's not personal. It's simply.
It is difficult for Christians to assimilate the notion of karma. It's not, and the fundamental reason is because we believe that all have sinned. So we're all, in a sense.
You've all created karma.
Right. So the karmic consequence for us is that we're all, in a sense,
you're
doomed
all sinners
and have to be crucified. But actually,
you know what? Well, what I learned about the cross and crucifixion was that the cross is the symbol of the resurrection of man up through karmic experience, which is the crossbeam, up to the mighty Godhead. So man is being crucified through karmic experience up to the Christ consciousness again. That's what the cross represents.
But the consequence of the cross for the Christian is that we do not, in fact, reap the reward for our sins. Which would be a terrible reward, of course.
But in a sense, Father, in a sense, there is karmic play in the theology of it, because it's not saying that the karma is being eliminated. It's saying that Jesus is taking it on himself to resolve it, but it's still saying it needs to be resolved.
But he did not deserve that by his so-called karmic action.
No, he does it on our behalf. However, it could be like, one could argue, why doesn't God just magically remove, the effects of the fallen world? Why not just fix it?
Sure.
Snapping your finger and it's done.
Because that wouldn't be just.
That wouldn't be just. Yeah. So the karmically, it still plays out. It's just the responsibilities shift. Whereas instead of trying to resolve karma that we can't, in terms of, I'm talking strictly in Christian terms.
You're hitting the nail on the head there, because, this is purely how I look at how I view Jesus and his purpose. So when I think that Jesus came here at a time where mankind, if you view karma as this pool of energy that we've created, right, through our thoughts and processes. So pure energy comes in, we transform it down, we do things with it, and in our ignorance, we create negative repercussions through our ignorance. We, all kinds of things we do which are stupid, and we learn through it. But unfortunately, the pool of negative energy became so great that we had no way to transmute it all without getting wiped out. Mm-hmm. So I think Jesus came here, and it's like putting it on a credit card. He says, okay, I'm going to take care of this for you for now. And when you get on your feet, you can pay me back. And that's kind of how I look at it. So in a sense, he did take on the karma of the world, but not forever, not totally. It's like he's letting us get on our feet.
It's not wiped out.
It's not wiped out. It's in abeyance, as it were. He interceded, and some of it was transmuted, because it's not all negative energy we create. So what he did was he took all of our good thought, all of our good energy, he used it in his incredible God perceptive way to combat the evil or the darkness that had been created. And what was left allowed us to be able to get on our feet and hopefully deal with it ourselves, get to a point where, like he said, as I have, what did he say? Greater things than I have done will you do also. Remember?
Yeah, talking about like the mountains, the moving of the mountains, and that.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything that I can do, you can do
also and more. Yeah. And how does he move a mountain? Because he knows about the Devic kingdom, and he knows about how to move energy through the Devas. And when he said, if I think that mountain would move, it would move. Well, he knows exactly how to move it.
I think there's a way that I can kind of help a very Western Christian mind to understand sort of the more Eastern notions of karma, because it is a challenge because Christianity, basically all the Abrahamic religions, all three of them are very much built on a punishment reward system.
Right.
And the idea is that, you do something wrong, God will punish you. You do something right, you get rewarded for that. And it's kind of a very simplistic, almost kindergarten level way of looking at it. It's not really that way when you get into the heart of the theology, but that's the common perception. So when a Christian hears about something like karma, they're thinking it's a reward punishment system, and it's not. It's basically a balancing system.
Exactly.
It's mathematical, really. And the way that it was
pure energy.
Yeah, it's pure energy.
Pure
so the way to
energy.
explain it is this: is like I ask a Christian, I'll say, okay, I'm going to give you a Buddhist example of karma. All right, you're starving. Your family's starving. Okay, you're hungry. You have no food, but there's a pig out there at the farm, and you can go and kill it. Now, under Buddhist notions, killing anything is wrong. It's
No.
Yeah, I mean, even killing animals for food is sort of against the tenets of Buddhism, because everything is a sacred life. Everything needs to be cherished. They don't have that idea in Christianity where God has given us the custodianship over animals. It's not the same kind of relationship. In Buddhism, there's transmutation potentially of souls. So, it could be someone's grandmother, that's in that pig. So, I mean, basically every animal's sacred. You just don't kill anything. You don't kill. I mean, there's even like the Jains are really serious about it. They walk around naked with brooms, and they're sweeping in front of them as they walk through.
That, yeah.
And it's like, why are you doing that? Well, they're trying to get the bugs out of the way so they don't accidentally step on one. So they walk everywhere with a broom, sweeping the bugs out of their path so that they don't kill anything inadvertently and generate karma. So, all right. So back to my thing. You're starving. Okay, your family's starving.
That sounds like a prison sentence.
No, doesn't it?
I'm sorry. That pig's dead. I'm eating grandma. That's all there is to it.
You're eating grandma.
I'm eating grandma.
All right. So So basically, the under the laws of karma, killing that thing is basically the Buddhist equivalent of a sin. Okay, you're conducting a wrong. Now, you might say it's for a greater good in the sense that you're doing it for the survival and sustenance of your family, but you're still taking a life in order to do that, which generates karma. Again, getting back to how Christians look at it, we think that we can justify through intention, say, well, this is our intention. It's a greater good. But karma doesn't look at greater goods. Karma is just whether or not the balance is being maintained. If you upset the balance, there's a consequence to that balance. It's not a judgment. It's just a consequence. It's a cause and effect relationship.
A balance between what, though? A balance between what two poles?
But between the poles of, I guess you could say, yin and yang, the active and passive principles of the universe, and maintaining that in perfect order.
So, because the reason the description of the poles is important is the demand for balance a good demand? I mean,
there is no good and evil. There is no good and evil in Buddhism. I mean, there's wholesome.
There's no demand or anything.
So it's actually incompatible.
Yeah, to a hardcore Christian mind, I suppose
it could be. Yeah. I mean, it could be perceived that way. I personally don't think it is, because I think that our notions of good and evil are really constructs that are basically human applications of the same principle. Yeah. We live in a world where good and evil matters. Cosmically, it's not.
I understand that we can make the analogy work. I'm not. The human, especially the English language, is very good at making different concepts fit together that may not.
It's syncretic ideas.
What I can't get around is, and I accept what you said about it not being about good or bad, but
let me finish what I was going to say, and then see if this helps you, and then we can chat about it. So you're starving. You get this pig. The tenets of your religion, Buddhism, says you can't kill it. And if you do so, there's going to be karmic consequence to that. Even if you're doing it for a good reason, cosmically does not matter, because it's the action of killing. It's the cause and effect that creates the karma, not the intention behind it. So what do? You need to eat the pig, but you can't kill it. So what you do is you tie, this is good Buddhism now, you tie a noose around the pig's neck, and you put a stake in the ground near a cliff. And then you put food on the towards the end of the cliff so that the pig has to stray towards the end, and eventually the pig will slip and fall and kill itself. Karmically, you can now eat that animal because you didn't kill it. You didn't create the karma for it. It created the karma for itself. And as a Christian, we're saying, it's the same thing. You set it up. But you didn't create the cause and effect. Yeah, you didn't pull the trigger. Yeah. You set it up. But the intention is not what the cosmic system of balance looks at. It only looks at the actions, not the intentions behind the actions. That's the part that's incompatible with Christianity. Hope that helps.
Yeah, it's a soulless universe.
Buddhism is anatta. I mean, there is no soul in Buddhism. Yeah. I mean, no self, no soul.
I think it's all about intention.
Well, yeah, the Buddhist point of view is very interesting because I think they've got a few things wrong there, because they don't include the afterlife. They don't think people go to an afterlife. They don't think they hang out there for 100 years and come back. You know, they just think that you go out your body and you're back again immediately. Most of them do
until
anyway.
you attain enlightenment, where then you enter into, I guess, parinirvana, which is sort of, I guess, a blissful state, kind of, I guess, heaven-like, but it's not kind of what you're talking about with an afterlife.
Yeah, exactly. So how do they explain it? They don't.
Yeah.
They can't explain it. They just dismiss it.
But I think that's why. I mean, although I suppose it's a bit nitpicking, really. So I should stop. But
no, go for it.
I just think it's why it's. You see, for me, Christianity is the opposite of what people think of. I mean, I'm not saying, because I'm not an expert on these things, but it's kind of I always describe it as the opposite of what Western people mean when they say karma, because karma kind of says you reap what you sow, you get what you deserve. But you see, Jesus always said, you reap what you do not sow. And that's the kind of Christian point, is to say that we are also beneficiaries of something that actually we don't deserve, which is grace and forgiveness.
Oh, yeah. But you're talking about something else. You're talking about grace.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree with you.
When you do an action for no desire of any reward, because
what we would say, where we might tally, is to say that if we want to look at things in the language of karma, is that actually, and I think you did already say it actually, but is that it's actually Christ that takes on that that redresses that balance, not us. And so now, we believe that Jesus is God and man. And therefore, yes, a temporal sacrifice, a man in time, but because he's God, it's an eternal one. So in fact, it atones for, however you want to describe it, the wrongs of humanity for all time. And it's that same sacrifice that we tap into, whether it was the disciples or at the foot of the cross, or whether it's me now, or whether it's me after death.
I think the way it's reconciled, honestly, Father, is that to look at it in the context of Christian theology would see the fallen world. Okay. Now, if we are in this blissful state of an unfallen state, unperturbed, entering into, the Garden of Eden for the first time, prior to any damage being done cosmically to it by the actions of what becomes the story of Adam and Eve, of course, a metaphor for something kind of cosmic and ineffable, but still, a story to kind of give some perception to human beings to understand that something did happen. What that did is it took a perfect, a state of perfect creation, what science actually calls, in a theoretical sense, ectropy. Now, we are used to entropy in the sense that things are deteriorating. You start from states of order, and entropy demands that over time things will become increasingly disordered, and that's what really is what causes death. Is that your and that philosophically corresponds to how we understand things theologically, in the sense that this action of the fallen universe brought death into the world in a way.
As soon as you're born.
Yes, and so entropy becomes sort of a law that becomes a contrast to that perfect state of creation that we started out in. There's your polarity. You have the yang, active principle, the creative principle, and then you get the yin, passive principle, which is kind of the reabsorption or destructive principle. And we're not aligned energetically to destruction, so we will see anything that is of that destructive principle as bad or evil, and anything that is aligned energetically to creation we see as good. Naturally, we kind of just lend itself to that, which is why we have our survival instinct, and we do things that should promote life, and we see things that is destructive as a bad thing. Could it be that Jesus, in his infinite wisdom, sees the world as this? And this is the karmic state. That is what the fallen universe did. The effect is to create now karma, where we never could have produced karma prior. The fallen world produces karma.
I think where we transcend this is that that's a description of the created world, if you like.
Yes.
And I get that. But actually, we believe God, the Father, is uncreated. And so
we're talking about outside of the cosmos. I mean, but within the cosmos, we obviously, our fallen state did not affect the fathers or damage the kingdom in any way.
No.
We just damaged the cosmos that we have access to. And so, in fact, I think that's even what's implied by being cast out of the Garden of Eden, is that we didn't damage the Garden of Eden. We were removed from it. Yep. So I think what we could say to reconcile it is that why Jesus is always working through reversal, in the sense that the last will be first, the first will be last. By death he destroys death. How do we conquer death? By dying. That's how he was putting karma on its head. And no one actually in the Eastern religions works with karma that way. They either play it out, or they eventually reach a point where they burn it off and they transcend it.
Yeah, like they just submit to it.
They submit to it.
They go, oh, well, it's just my karma to be a...
But Jesus gives us an actual methodology for actually fixing it. Yeah, dealing with it.
Yeah, for dealing with it.
Yeah, so I don't see them as incompatible. I see
he was an example.
Well, I think we've arrived at...
to use it.
Yeah.
We've arrived at a point of agreement.
Yeah.
It's all intertwined.
I have one question about the Adam and Eve thing.
Yeah.
Where did Lilith come from, and where did she go?
I wish Father Firth he should call in. He would be a great one to.
He's in the chat.
Yeah, he's in the chat.
He was in the chat.
He is in the chat.
All right, Father Firth.
Some people think Lilith is a demon. And that there are demons that sometimes you encounter. I have not encountered this in the field. But I'm
quite happy. I'm quite happy with the story of Adam and Eve and the original sin, original guilt, as analogous to consciousness. It's about it's a creative way of exploring the fact that human beings have consciousness and therefore have consciousness of right and wrong. I mean, people have been in the chat on another thread, which we're going to get into, talking about animals do this, which is like humans. But the point is, humans are not like animals. I mean, we're very like them biologically, physiologically, but we're nothing like them morally.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's a bad kind of analogy to compare us to animals, because in fact, we're a higher order of life.
There's another analogy of another way of looking at Adam and Eve. So you have in Eastern, especially in India, in the yogic tradition, you have the spinal cord, and you have Edi and Pingala, which are two conduits which interact through the chakras, the 7 chakras in the body, the Christ center, the throat center, whatever, right down to the base of the spine. And the Garden of Eden is the chakras and the spinal cord. And the serpent, which is in India called the Kundalini, the 3.5
Kundalini,
coiled
yeah.
serpent at the base of the spine, is the energy, the moon energy, the negative force, negative in polarity, at the base of the spine. And your spinal column is an atom splitting machine. And at the top, you have your sun, your positive energy. And so the Garden of Eden is where all these trees are, the fruits, the different fruits in the garden. So this is the garden. And you're in the garden and you're conscious. If you're fully conscious of God, you're conscious of all of the chakras. So you are God conscious. And what happens is that man is tempted by a fruit and by the serpent, which comes up and tempts man. And this is the sex center. So man is tempted at the sex center and loses consciousness of the other centers and loses God consciousness and is brought down to the level of almost basic, very basic, primitive, and is cast out of the Garden of Eden. And that makes perfect sense to me, because now you have lost God consciousness and you are cast out of the consciousness of God. So you are thrown out of the Garden of Eden, which would be all of the awareness of the higher chakras. And that is, so it's a mystical text to me. This is what it represents, a mystical text.
It sounds also a lot like Kabbalah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very much like the Tree of Life, the mystical Tree of life.
Exactly.
It's
it
all
is.
intertwined.
Well, it sounds also a lot like pre-1950s Roman Catholic teaching.
Before they went and screwed that all up.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we've got Father Firth on the air now to
here we
answer
go.
the question
Lilith.
on Lilith. So,
Oh, here we go.
hello, Father. Welcome to the show.
One of the beauties of this is that you've got to remember that there's about 4 creation stories in the Old Testament that we use, and they all kind of contradict each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not always the stories that a Jew would have used at particular points in history. Those stories met particular ideas or understanding that groups of people or families within the tribes of people were trying to use to explain something. Now, the story of Adam and Eve is an ontogenetical story. It's there to explain lots of whys. Why is there pain in childbirth? Why is there suffering? Why do we die? Why is it so hard to make crops grow? Why? Why do people wear clothes? So it covers a vast array of area. Things like Kabbalah, that comes later, and it takes these stories and reuses them in a new way. When it comes to the story of Lilith, she isn't in original manuscripts. She's a side story. She's designed as the first wife of Adam, and all of that describes why people are in relationship the way they are, why people don't have sex with animals. After all, when Lilith and Adam are engaging with each other, they have many disagreements. Like, she doesn't want to be on the bottom. He wants to be in charge. She's cunning. She eats the fruit that's rotting on the ground. She learns secret information, like the names of God. She speaks them and has to flee the garden because she's suddenly got an awareness that in innocence somebody wouldn't have.
That's why I've always liked her.
And because she leaves the garden. She by coming to,
they didn't like that idea, so they kicked her out.
so,
We're back to St. Paul. We'll stop him from speaking in church.
so she can't be in a place of naivety once she has understanding. The point of the garden. The point of the garden. Yeah. The point of the garden is that you can't go back there. And people make the mistake of trying to reimagine.
And we never
going
go
to
back
the
there.
garden.
The cross doesn't take us back to Eden. It
That's
moves us
right.
beyond it.
But
Yeah.
Judaism doesn't go back to the garden either. There's no model of trying to go back to the garden to a point where we had no understanding, and that's why in the stories of Lilith, Adam wants her back, so God sends some angels to go and collect her, and by this stage she's breeding with Samiel, and popping out little children of Lilith. And she looks at these angels and says, how can I go back? Look at me now. I can't go back. And they basically go, well, we're going to be prats and we're going to kill you. And she's like, you can't do that. So God even actually offers her a salvation story of redemption in her own arc. She doesn't go back. The angels don't kill.
Oh,
Do we lose him?
Right.
That's him.
Lost you.
Did he get cast out of the garden?
I think he got cast out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
I'll
on
message
YouTube.
him. I'll message him.
Yeah, we lost him. Okay. Well, maybe you can try calling back in.
Right. So who was she having babies with? There were other people then.
Oh, he's back. He's back. Okay. So, all right. Father, you there?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
Marty was asking, who was she having babies with?
Samiel, who is one of the greater angels, who also becomes the angel of death. He's the angel that passes over.
I know the name. I've heard of it.
In the story of Exodus, and kills the firstborn in Egypt.
So is that how she eventually starts to develop into these medieval understandings of being a demon?
Yes.
Okay. I got you.
So she becomes the mother of all demons.
I see.
And she dies out as a sort of a side story within Judaism by the time of Isaiah.
Okay.
And there's one biblical reference to her still, which is in Isaiah. Depending on your translation, we will now just refer to it as the screeching of the owls. So she becomes a creature of her children become creatures of the night.
Vampires.
They're the things that
Are they
prey on.
Are they owls then?
No.
No.
A night bird.
A night.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was the owl?
More like bats, I think.
What was the owl reference you just said? What was that? I couldn't quite catch that.
The screeching of the owls is one of the translations that the line still mentioning her name in Isaiah can be translated to instead.
Oh, interesting. Because okay, I just find it interesting with owls because the owl is associated with Moloch.
Yeah, that's right.
And child sacrifice and all that. And so I just find that really interesting. That's all.
Yes, but in the dark, so you got to go back to human psyche. In the dark, people die, babies die, and what killed them? Sudden infant death syndrome. What caused it? So people would say, oh, it must have been Lilith hating the fact that Adam's descendants are breeding, that they're having babies, things that she can't have, normal human babies. And so they blamed her in the night for killing the human baby.
Oh, it's interesting.
I
just find it fascinating the kind of parallel here with how a whole bunch of people on this planet think in regards to owls and Moloch and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it shouldn't. We all have the same source.
Yeah, well, I just find it so interesting. It's like it just keeps reoccurring and coming up, and I think,
Well, every religion on earth has been influenced by every other religion.
Yeah,
True that.
Basically, you guys, at the end of the day, I know all this, all these texts and all that. I've read a lot of it myself. Haven't read as much as you guys on the Christian side of it. I'm pretty familiar, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to myself, my own personal experience with things, and I think it must do with everyone else. I mean, it all boils down to having experiences, and I think a lot of people are afraid to have experiences. And don't set up the you know,
well, they're afraid to step outside of the paradigm, I think, is what they create for themselves. And that's the real issue that I think you're getting at, Michael, is that, you know, I see religion as a model. All right. I do think there are some models that are better than others. Clearly, because I mean, I wouldn't be a Catholic if I didn't think that was a better model than Buddhism, which I used to practice. Not that I'm saying Buddhism is a bad model. I think it's a great one, but I think I got what I needed out of it. But they're still models. I don't think we can ever really know the ineffable. We can get close to it. We can have, like you say, experiences that give us insight into it, but they're always going to be very unique to our understanding, our perception, the way that our minds work, the way
everyone has to create their own path.
Yes, and I think that's what you're saying is that at the end of the day, the best that we can do is pick a model, try to work with it the best that we can. But in the end, it's really going to be how we personally relate to it, which is why even with Christianity being one model, you still have an estimated 33,000 denominations.
It's also it's connected to a really important theological principle, which doesn't matter what religion you're coming from, which is to say that God is revealed, you know, and what we're talking about is how different revelations of God are experienced by people. Right. But God is at the same time totally unknowable. And what I mean by unknowable is inexhaustible. Yes. Because if God could be completely known, we could exhaust ourselves of God.
Well, it couldn't exist. It's a void.
It's because God is inexhaustible. That's the meaning of life. That's why we live. To have life is to explore that. It's like, you know, it's if you compare it to a computer game, it's a computer game with no final end, no end boss,
no boss.
You know,
you know, kind of like No Man's Sky.
because once you've finished a game and you've completed it 100%, you will never play it again.
Well, see, that's why I play No Man's Sky, Father. It doesn't have an end.
I guess what I was trying to get at was I don't see that what I do with Marty is incompatible with Jesus' teachings or any of the other teachings. To me, it's just like a part of life, like we are on Earth. It's like you die, you've got to go somewhere. You know, you exist. You don't cease to exist. So you cross over. You're in this other energy body, which you're in right now. You're just unaware of it. Not you, but people
I also
generally.
don't believe that when you cross over, you're all of a sudden all-knowing, because then why live? You know,
it'd be kind of pointless, wouldn't it?
I think that is
right now. I can know everything.
That's a good point. I've always felt that was a very erroneous thing to think that somehow by dying and going to heaven, now all of a sudden you have like the omniscience of God.
No.
And actually, I'm going to need a head surgery.
You want, doesn't it? You know,
and it's very serious, because that kind of thinking leads to suicide.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because people think, I can't make sense of this world, I'll kill myself and all will be revealed to me.
That's it. That's right. That's right. It does.
I think
so. That's right. Exactly. It does.
Father Firth, you were saying something. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to have to head very shortly. But one of the things I'd like to just point out on that is that there's a human fallacy in this idea or understanding of knowing everything or knowing something fully. It's not possible. It doesn't matter what it is.
That's right.
Talk about something that everybody loves, like chocolate or coffee. You cannot know what it's like to actually be the tree that grows it. What it takes to draw those minerals and nutrients up out of the earth, to feel the rain on the ground behind it. We can enjoy chocolate and we can understand the process to grow chocolate.
But that's the end result.
But these are end results, and they're not the actual end.
We can't even understand the process of our neurons benefiting from the dopamine that's released from doing something we enjoy.
And I think the danger of all that is that when we have a conversation about the divine, we have this horrible assumption that somebody can absolutely know God, or that there is a categorical absolute right that this is all God can be, or that at this point these people know more about God, or that there's secret knowledge about God, or that because
that's
somebody
very
has
destructive
this
stuff.
God, it's the own. Like everybody has to have that experience of God if it's going to be a real experience, and we make these narrow labels and narrow paths, and we forget that all of these paths we walk are using materials that God has already, the ultimate, the divine, has already created for us to use to journey towards Him.
Well, I think I agree with you, except that I do think there are people that are further along the path who are what we would call saints or very
or mystics,
beings,
mystics,
that are aware of some of the things that you said, but you can't lie to yourself and say, "I think I'm doing." That's all ego, like you say. You can't say.
But even those people are.
Yeah, even they're humble. They know that
they have
they know they're on the path, and
They're,
they know they're on the path, and they've farther to go. Yeah, exactly. So you're right in
never
the true
ending.
sense.
Well, it's the nature of ectropy, isn't it? I mean, we were talking about ectropy as a theoretical before, but if it is a real existent thing, and Christians would say that it is, because that is the nature of the kingdom of heaven, the nature of eternal life, the nature of salvation, is the opposite of entropy. It is to constantly be in a state of getting better. So if entropy is things coming from a state of complexity to breaking down, then the opposite of that would be increasing to greater states of perfection. But never actually attaining to it, never actually getting there. But the act of being perfect is to be made even more perfect each time. So in my mind, because I know that sometimes people say, well, heaven sounds pretty boring. It can't be. It couldn't be, because
it's not boring.
Yeah, it's always got something to reveal. We
only
get to
the beginning.
Yeah.
There was one analogy made by an extraterrestrial through someone, and this extraterrestrial said that men of Earth, you have to. So if you think that there are beings on other worlds who are advanced and have superior knowledge to us because of the time they've been at this. The statement was made that men of Earth in the future will be as tempered steel in comparison to the iron of Mars. And I think that's an incredible statement, because what do you get when you... Oh, my cat.
Did he have some input?
He's got something to say about this.
So I think of a soul as like a sword, and a sword represents truth and reality.
Right.
Being constantly heated, hammered, until
refined.
the sword is as flexible as it can possibly be, as strong, as hard on the edge. That's what I think of as a soul, being tempered in the fires of life. That's how I see human beings. We're being constantly brought to a state of perfection, and that's what this extraterrestrial said, and they made that statement because we're so backward. that we keep fucking everything up, excuse my friend.
It's true.
No,
One day,
spitting facts right there.
When we get on our feet, we will have gone through so much shit that we will be that freaking hardened.
No, I agree. I agree with that.
No, there's something. I mean, because I agree with everything you just said, and I think people confuse goodness with inactivity and passivity.
Yeah.
If somehow you're just meek and you don't do anything, that's virtue, and and it's not true, and oftentimes doing the good thing is messy and looks terrible, and I think back to being a policeman, and
exactly what I was
sometimes sometimes doing the good thing means punching someone and knocking them out and putting them in handcuffs.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not nice. It's not something that we dream of being able to do, but it's, goodness is tough, really tough. And I mean, and it's what you were talking about is actually being reflected in the comments that were just being made. And this is the idea that, people misunderstand what the church means by a saint.
Right.
The saints are not people who are virtuous.
No,
the saints are people who are aware of their sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what makes them a saint. They don't make themselves a saint by being good.
My teacher said a saint is the sinner who never gave up.
Yes. Yeah. And there's another great quote, all saints have a past and all sinners have a future,
I like that.
So, but the point is that and it's not like, I mean, yes, there are saints like St. Augustine, St. Ambrose, who were terrible in their youth, came to faith and then did lots of good things. But that's not what made them a saint. What made them a saint was their awareness of their need for God. Yeah. And, a saint would never, ever think of themselves as saintly. That's the point.
Right. That's right.
And so, I mean, I've just been reading the life of St. Porphyrius, who led what would be to a secular eyes a saintly life, did good things for people, things that are easy to sort of understand as being good. But, the letter he wrote before he died was saying what a sinner he is. Now that has two really good connotations. One is his own sense of humility and of not thinking that he's better than anybody else, but also to encourage those of us who actually have not led a life as saintly as St. Porphyrius, that actually, he also feels in the same camp as us. Right. And so, and I think there's a great misunderstanding of what we mean by the sort of heroes of the faith.
Yes.
We're not saying they're people that have just done things that, especially that the world would consider good, but that they've been aware of their own fragility and their own need to overcome their struggles and their sins. I mean, the name Israel means one who wrestled with God.
Mm-hmm. Well, look at
the heart of all salvation is this wrestle.
I mean, you can just see that in all of the disciples that Jesus chose. He didn't choose, somebody that was meditating over in the corner. No, he
had a terrible HR department.
That's right.
He got some ruffians in there.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, they all abandoned him. Well, all but one. They all left him alone, apart from the women.
Yeah.
Try to set up a church, and just pick 12 random guys to run it with you. You're going to have problems. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be. It doesn't matter how great they are. It's going to be. There's going to be problems.
You just use whoever you can get.
I mean,
use what you got.
Which shows that the path to holiness isn't trying to attain to some unrealistic ideal, but awareness and the freedom to be aware. Though that's the path to holiness. The freedom comes from God, and then our commitment, the work that we put into it, is the development of awareness. To be aware, even look at the sacraments themselves.
Our humility.
People. One of the things that you get the biggest complaints about that people struggle with, even Catholics themselves struggle with, is reconciliation, the sacrament of confession. Because I have to go and tell some priest all these things I've done wrong. I'm just going to go to God. But the problem with that, it sounds like a viable option for you.
Yeah.
But the problem is, until you get it out in the way that you have to experience it through the lens of another person, it's not really real, is it? You can just kind of because God can feel quite ethereal, particularly when you're praying by yourself. It can be a very ethereal experience, almost to the point that you can dismiss it. But you can't dismiss being in a confessional with another person and saying, I did this and I did that. It makes your sins real. It takes them out of yourself and it forces cognition. It forces you to look at it.
It also makes the forgiveness real.
It does.
See, what you might ask, why on earth did Jesus Christ give authority to the apostles to absolve sins? Why bother?
Yeah.
He absolves sins. Surely he's the God-man.
Yeah.
Because he knew human weakness. Human beings are really good at convincing themselves that they've not sinned,
right.
and really good at convincing themselves that they cannot be forgiven.
Yeah.
Well, of course, the devil does this too.
Yeah.
And so Jesus knew that we needed other men to say, actually, you've confessed that already and it's been forgiven. Move on.
Move on.
So because people always forget that reconciliation, there's two parts to it. But yes, one is the confession of sins, but actually the second part is the absolution of sins, which is a way to say you're a slave to these things that are in your troubling your conscience and your mind. These are the things that the devil uses to keep you back. He definitely doesn't want you to go to confession. He doesn't want priests to exist. That's why he attacks us all the time. And so, because once they've been absolved, you're no longer bound by them.
Well, there's actually three parts.
There's actually the amazing thing.
There's actually three parts to confession, really. You got the confession, right? Then you got the absolution, but then there's also repentance. The firm commitment to not commit that again is kind of what I guess makes the absolution stick. If you want, because if you can't just go
to change your mind.
Yeah, well, that's it. Because a lot of people think that they can just do all these horrible things, go to confession, get forgiven, go and do them again. But it doesn't work like that either. And that is a misconception that a lot of outsiders have about the faith.
Feel like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. Yeah, we run into it.
You're good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I give far harsher penances than that. Saying 10 Hail Marys is a joy. If you say actually you need to go to violence counselling, that's a pretty harsh penance compared to 10 Hail Marys.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. That is true. I'm glad.
But more effective.
I'm glad when I went to confession for you, I didn't have to experience that. I think you're easy on me, Father. You're easy on me.
I'll say nothing.
Nothing.
But the reality is, that it's about awareness. And see, that's where I look for as somebody who is always looking for the syncretic connections between these different religions and different models, and trying to find the common ground, is that when you really break them all down, you can get to that lowest common denominator. And yeah, they all have different ideas of how you get there and why you're there and what you do once you're there. But the fact is, it is ultimately about awareness, and it's about freedom to be aware. Those are the two components, and without that, there can be no holiness. Which is why,
that's why you get the commonalities, because we're all this is to be Abrahamic at the start, but not the end of this process.
Yes,
we're all created in the image and likeness of God, and therefore, of course, we wouldn't be surprised that all human beings across the ages and across the world are wrestling with what it means to be an embodied spirit, to be somebody with a conscience and with an eternal nature. That's also experiencing time and space.
Right.
Well, Michael and Marty, it's kind of like, I look at it this way, and I think you'll relate to this one. I've said this on this show before. I see life, and, as people can see it as a big tragedy, right? I mean, you see the bumper stickers, life sucks and then you die, and a very negative, pessimistic view on reality. And there's a lot of people who are very depressed and anxious and hate being here. And, suicidal ideation is a real thing. And, there's definitely a clinical level of magnitude that goes with that the depression can get so severe that the person literally feels that there's no way to escape the torment of living, but to just cease to exist, or at least as they see it. And so we look at life and we see these struggles and we see the complexities and we struggle with the whole aspect of it. But look at it from a divine perspective. Like, look at it from as if you were God, and you have this omniscience, omnipotence, immortality, transcend. It's beyond immortality. You're talking about not even where time and space don't even really have any relevance. That it's all part of just the creation that you forge. Okay. When you're looking at life that way from the vantage point, it's a lot like, when you're a parent of a toddler, and the toddler's, learning how to ride a bike, and they fall and then they scrape their knee and they start screaming, bloody murder over the scraped knee. And to the toddler, it's the end of the world. And to us, we're kind of like, we go over there, we comfort them, but in the back of our minds, we're kind of like smiling. It's like, just get up, do it again. It's not a big deal. Yeah, it hurts. We'll clean it up. You'll be fine. But in that moment, the child doesn't feel fine. And I kind of see us in that same state as it relates to God. We look at things like, why would God, take my child? Why all this death? Why all this suffering? And it's kind of like, to a God, you're looking at all of these crises that we have in life, even COVID-19 and all of the stuff. And it's kind of like falling off your bike and scraping your knee to a God,
You're touching on the remedy, because, we've said it already, that there's a death cult going on all around us in the secular world. Yeah. What the antidote to this is actually to celebrate life. Now, I'm not being political on this. This is not a political statement at all.
I know what you mean.
This is a theological, metaphysical statement. We have to celebrate the gift of life. And be not positivist, but be positive about life itself. So that when your toddler scrapes his knee, the reason that you're not distraught is because that's not a life-threatening injury, and they it's all part of developing and growing up, And so we have to hold that view towards other people. I mean, especially people we find really hard to love. We've got to, and say no. That I already know. That you're a beloved child of God, or however you want to conceptualize it, and say there is good news at the end of this. Life is always good, and therefore not positivist as though we're ignoring the trips in the road, but to say there is a meaning and a purpose.
You're going to get scraped knees. That's all there's to it.
Michael and Marty, thank you so much for being with us. I'm sorry for the interruption.
It was a fun conversation.
Another great conversation.
Anytime, you guys are fantastic. You've got an open invite. Anytime you want to come on this show, just let me know. Okay.
Outstanding.
Sounds great.
At least once a season. All right.
Love y'all. Stay safe.
Father Chris, thank you. Father Firth, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
And
thank
you, Jamie, for coming all the way out here today.
No problem.
We will be back next week with a brand new episode. Hopefully we won't get kicked off next time. I'll try to do something. Maybe I'll reset the router and hopefully we'll have a better experience.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, but we got a special new guest next week. I'm not going to say too much. We'll see you then. Until then, I'll see you out there in the ether. God bless. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.